But even if I didn't have it identified, you can tell me, right?
Yeah.
I know where that is, on the road to Freeport.
You got it. But no book. You gotta tell me where that place is in that book. Now, my cool story about this is that the Quakers, you know, part of the Quaker religion is you can't tell a lie. So, how did all these Quakers have people in their houses and their churches? Well, the lawmen came to say, you got slaves in your house. They could say, no, we don't. Because they didn't recognize slavery as an institution. Didn't exist. In their minds, slavery is not an institution. I'm not hiding any slaves. So there. Now, so I said we're up to 89 houses now, and we find some every now and again. And it's a great story. This is one of my favorite stories. Okay, I'm skipping ahead here. Okay. This house is in Palermo, Maine. Very unassuming, right? Well, Lenny and Danielle Goodine bought this home in Palermo in the spring of 2017. And they got in touch with me and sent me these photographs I'm going to show you. It's an amazing story. It was built in the 1850s, and they discovered what appeared upstairs to be a drawer. They opened that up, and there's actually a safe. There was a room back there that could hide several slaves.
Oh my gosh.
Proof? You want proof that this house held slaves? Okay, inside that hidden room was a letter. And the letter was from Charles. Okay, the letter was from Charles, a soldier in the Civil War, to his wife. Anybody with good enough eyesight to read this? I will tell you what it says. Because 2020. Dearest Sarah, I have missed you so very much as the fighting has been very heavy for the past few days. God, however, has been my stay. Without his help and the thought of you, my love, I would have given up long ago. Many a men in my company have nearly given up hope of ever seeing their families again. There are times, my love, that first comes to mind. Behold, I have graven thee on the palms of my hand. Thy walls are continually before me. God has done many things for me these past months, things I could not even imagine. And here, listen closely. The farm, this is this letter from Charles to his wife Sarah. The farm is being well taken care of by your guests, I trust. Just make sure they are not seen. Pretty soon, you should send them on their way to Canada. Congress has enacted a new law, billed as the Fugitive Slave Law, and slave owners from the southern states can come to the north and recapture their slaves. Those harboring these fugitives can be arrested for doing so. Be careful. Your loving Charles. Pretty neat, huh? Find that letter in your house. This is amazing. Now, how did the slaves know where? It's not like they could pick up a gazetteer, a main gazetteer. They didn't exist. So how did they know where to go? Hold on, Sheriff. I'm going to call you in. Well, there are certain things. We have a nephew that lives down in Cumberland, Forsyth, and that chimney right there told people that's a safe house.
Oh, really?
Oh, you might have the jockey. You know, people probably got rid of those jockeys because, like, you had a Ku Klux Klan thing in your closet to get rid of it. Well, they probably, that was a sign, that jockey was a sign that that was a safe house. If you grab your left ear when passing a black man and follow me to a safe house. Trees along the way in the woods would have a peg leg. And if you had to follow that, it means that you were on the right trail. And of course, there was a slave grapevine. It predated our social media, thank goodness. But imagine, the grapevine was probably the greatest thing they had, telling one person to get to another for where to go. And then there was a specialty which Auburn's own Cheryl Whitmore is here to share with us. I think, right? Okay.
The slaves were not allowed to learn to read and write, so the fact that they don't have a lot of written reports and information about slavery from the slaves is because they didn't have a way to write it. So they tried to come up with many different ways to get them on the right path, to get them headed in the right direction. So they used quilts. The very clever women of this country used quilts. This is the North Star, which is very evident. There's a little spot here, and that would point you north. So you have to look for that specific little knot, and it can move around the quilt depending on how you've got it hanging in your yard. But it's so subtle that you wouldn't see it unless you were looking for it. These are the flying geese, so you're heading north. This is the way you're going to be going. This is pack your gear, all your stuff, and be ready, because we're ready to take a trip to Canada. So these quilts were called monkey wrenches, and it's just pack your gear, and get your stuff ready. And this one is the crooked path, and that's telling them to beware. There are slave catchers and their dogs in the area. So take a very swirly route on your passage, because that's the only way you're going to be safe.
Thus called the drunkard's path.
And it's called the drunkard's path.
Be careful. Thank you very much for saving time out, showing us that.
Yeah.
And yes, I got a break from my own, when Cheryl's not with me to remind me, we have here this one. Now, when the slaves came to Maine, Portland, and this is 1860 Portland. Can you relate to that? That's Portland in 1860. But Portland was a hub, not only for the ships, but people coming along land. In fact, my boy Tice comes up through land. He has the most fascinating meeting with Henry David Thoreau in Massachusetts. But you have to read the book about that. So they come into Portland. Portland's a fascinating city. And they had this incredible network in their city. Crucial to this network were cabbies, hack stands. Reuben Roby was a famous free black man in Portland, and he and another black man had Charles Pierce. They had hacks, and they transport their slaves. Slaves, they've been through heck, and they look like heck, right? They get to Portland, and it's fascinating. They will be taken to, I can't point out, okay, they'll be taken to the barber shop, Jacob Dixon's barber shop. What happens in the barber shop? They not only get their hair cut, not only get the beard shaved, they get fake beards, they get wigs on them. They're taken to the used goods clothing. Here at Lloyd Scott's Clothing. And they get a whole new wardrobe of clothing. By the time they get done and get transported to various houses around the city, no one would recognize them. They be taken to the Abyssinian Church. That's the second black church in America, second oldest black church in America. They're rebuilding it now. Obviously, it's got a ways to go. But they got $2.5 million they're going to spend on so far.